What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for the inaugural episode of my new podcast, A Man and His Bricks. For the past couple of months, I've been wanting to up my content game and kind of put out newer, better, different kinds of videos. And I've been debating, thinking about different kinds of new series, videos to start. And ultimately, it came down to if I should start doing more vlogs or start my own podcast. And ultimately, I decided to go with the podcast for a couple of reasons. It may seem like a lot of people are starting their own podcasts right now. And I guess I'm kind of jumping on the podcast bandwagon, but I've been wanting to do something like this for a while, just kind of sitting down and just talking with you guys and kind of getting behind the scenes of Coconut Brick Studios. So this podcast is not going to be so much me talking about Lego news, Lego sets, Lego things. It's going to be talking about more like the man behind the Lego, kind of my life and how it's affected by Lego. I obviously will be talking about Lego because that's what I love to do, and this is a Lego channel, but it's going to be a little bit deeper than that, a little bit more cerebral, and focus more on kind of my life as an AFOL and kind of giving you guys a look into what that is. I also kind of struggle speaking on camera and kind of monologuing and dialoguing because typically, when I'm doing a Lego video, it's a review or I'm showing you guys Utapau or some kind of mock, so I can focus on the Lego, but I don't really just kind of sit down and speak my thoughts. And that's something I've been wanting to improve on for a while. I think that's a good skill to attain, which will help me in a lot of different fields. And I figured doing my own podcast, while a little bit scary and intimidating, would be a great way to tackle that. I'm really excited to bring you guys this new podcast. I think it's going to be really fun, and there's going to be a lot of interactive segments to it. I'm going to have three main segments. The first is going to be Life of an AFOL, where I kind of talk you guys through a little bit of what I've been building, but more my thoughts behind it, kind of my budget, what I've been spending on Lego, what I've been doing with my Lego. And then I'm going to have a Q&A segment, which is going to be themed. So I'm going to talk about that later when I get to that segment, but each episode is going to have a themed question and answer where you guys can ask me certain kinds of questions and I'll give you guys my answers to them and kind of talk a little bit more, kind of a way to like have us be able to talk about one kind of general theme, while not just me talking, but you guys giving me some questions and topics and ideas for things to talk about. And then the third and final segment is going to be called YouTubing on a Budget. This is where I'm going to take a piece of technology, a piece of, filming gear, camera gear, anything, and kind of give you guys a small review of it. These are things that I've bought in the past, and these are going to be things that are going to be affordable, fairly cheap. I'm not going to be reviewing, $200 microphones, $300 lighting setups, real simple things that hopefully will benefit you guys and help you guys who are kind of on a low budget channel. All that being said, it's time to start the first episode of A Man and His Bricks. Let's roll the intro. So the first segment for this podcast is going to be called Life of an AFOL. Like I said earlier, kind of just what Lego related things have been going on in my life. So first things first, I want to talk about my dry January. So some of you guys may be familiar with this term. This kind of means like going away from something, if like you drink alcohol, kind of not drinking alcohol for a month, or, some kind of fast, going off of sugar for a month. And my fast for this month is actually Lego. As you guys know, I kind of went big last month, bought myself another UCS Star Destroyer. It was a lot of fun. I've made a lot of great content with that Star Destroyer, and I have more great content coming up. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it was kind of a spendy December. I did also get this Blue Yeti microphone, as well as the microphone stand and a bunch of other odds and ends. So this month of January, I've decided to just kind of go cold turkey and not buy any Lego sets at all. This is no Lego Star Wars, Lego City, nothing. It's actually been pretty nice to just sit back and enjoy what I have, because I think especially myself, I get so caught up in like, oh, new sets are coming out. I need this one. I need this one. I need to add to my collection. And sometimes I forget to just kind of sit back and enjoy what I have, because I do have a very great collection. I'm very blessed with the technology I've been able to buy. And so it's been nice to start the month by appreciating what I already have and own. Not only am I not doing any Lego sets, but I'm not doing any Bricklink orders, which that one is going to be a lot tougher because you guys know me. I'm currently working on a large mock. I have lots of side projects going on and I love to build. So that one's going to be a little bit more of a challenge, but I thought it was important for me to really just kind of sit down and try to work with what I have, because I do have a lot of parts in stock, and I tend to order more and more because I'm like, oh, I need these and these and these. And so these next couple of episodes of building Utapau are just going to be with what I currently have. And I'm going to take a little bit of time away from like spending and shopping, but I kind of want to step away from that for the month of January and just build with what I have, because I don't do that very often. It's kind of a fun challenge. I'm excited to see like, okay, can I really do this? Can I continue to filming episodes of building Utapau without, constantly having new orders of Bricklink packages coming in? That being said, the next episode of building Utapau is going to have a Lego haul in it. It's going to have packages. Those were packages that I purchased before I made this goal. So don't worry, I'm not going back on my word. I'm not being a hypocrite. Just wanted, to let you guys know when you watch that episode next week, those packages were already purchased. Another thing I've been thinking a lot about this month is kind of what am I going to be doing with my channel? I feel like for January, it's a very reflective and a very hope-filled month in certain ways. It can be kind of dark and gloomy just because it's winter. The days are short, they're cold, but it's also a time to really think like, what am I going to do this year? I have a fresh year on my plate. What am I going to make of it? And for me personally, this year, I really want to diversify my content. This podcast is kind of the beginnings of this new diversified mindset, but I want to start putting out new kinds of videos. For a while, I kind of got stuck in this rut of like, I've got a haul video coming out. I've got a couple episodes of building Utapau. I've got some streams, maybe a review, which are all great videos, and those aren't going away. However, I want to sprinkle in other stuff, kind of Lego related, but non-Lego based videos, if that makes sense. So kind of like Lego humor videos, like if you guys remember my modified AAT video I put out. And I have a few cool ideas that I think would be really fun. And so this year I'm really going to try diversifying my content and implementing new kinds of videos that I haven't done before. Speaking of new kinds of videos that I haven't done before, as you guys know, I have a goal out right now to hit 1,500 subscribers by February 21st. And if I hit that goal, I'm going to be drop testing my UCS Star Destroyer. And I feel like I need to bring this up just because of the reaction I got when I put this video out. A lot of people freaked out and were really sad that I was dropping it. But here's the thing. I've never tried doing something like this before, and I think it could be really fun. I do have a Star Destroyer built and displayed already. So it's not like I'm dropping my only Star Destroyer. And this Star Destroyer, the second one that I will hopefully be drop testing, I'm going to be taking it apart completely for the pieces. So either way, it's coming apart. And I just thought it would be fun, I've never been much of a drop test guy before. In fact, I kind of hated them in the beginning, but they've kind of grown on me a little bit. And in this new spirit of wanting to try new things, I really want to try it out and see what it's like. I'm not going to make a habit of dropping things, and I'll be very careful. Like you guys know me, I very much love and respect my Lego collection. And so I'm going to be putting a blanket down. I'm going to be taking the stand off underneath the Star Destroyer so it won't crack or break. So it's going to have a fairly soft landing. So it's not like I'm just going to go throw this on the pavement and walk away. I will still be able to reuse the pieces, and ultimately, this Star Destroyer was coming apart anyway, so I figured let's make it fun. Let's make a spectacle out of it, because if I can pull this off, if we can get 1,500 subscribers by February 21st, I'm going to go all out with the video. Like I'm going to give the Star Destroyer a little toss. I'm going to be standing up super high. I'm going to have multiple camera angles so I can kind of put together a cool montage of it crashing with different angles, slow-mo shots, and all that cool stuff. So I just thought I had to address that just because people were like, whoa, what are you doing? Why on earth would you do this? And I want to try putting up new kinds of content that push me to do things that I haven't done before, and kind of, editing wise, filming wise, doing different things. So if you're watching this and you haven't yet subscribed, don't forget to like and subscribe so we can get one sub closer to drop testing the UCS Star Destroyer. I'll have more good stories for you guys next month. The next segment is going to be a Q&A segment that I was talking about earlier. Now I want this segment to be themed for a couple of reasons. The first is I feel like it's easier to ask someone questions when you have kind of a theme or something to base those questions around. If I walk up to you and I'm just like, ask me a question, a million different things are going to fly through your head. Like, why is your hair so long? Why do you have a beard? How do you afford so much? Just so many different things. Obviously, this is the first podcast, so I don't have any questions because there was no previous podcast to ask you guys for questions. So there is no theme either. So what I decided to do is kind of just come up with some of my own questions that I feel like people like to hear or I do get asked. And then at the end of this segment, I'll give you guys the theme for next month. And then if you do have any questions based on the theme for the next podcast, please put them down below in the comments. I would love to get your guys' questions. I would love to answer them. The second reason I'm doing themed Q&A is because I want to encourage kind of deeper, more thoughtful questions. I'm trying to stray away. I'm trying to get away from like, oh, what's your favorite Lego set, favorite minifigure, favorite Star Wars movies? These are all great questions that I love to answer and I love to dialogue with you guys about. However, I'm saving this podcast for kind of deeper, more thoughtful conversations. I do have a couple questions to give you guys today. The first question is, what got me into mock building? And this is a question that I love it when people ask me, just because mock building is so important, so meaningful to me. I love to share the story of like how this all came about, because for you OG viewers out there, you'll remember in the beginning, this channel was strictly like a review speed build comparison channel. I feel like when a lot of Lego YouTube channels start, you kind of start out with the generic easy content. You do reviews, you do speed builds, you do comparisons, right? And so this is what I was doing in the beginning. I didn't even dream of putting mocks out on my channel, just because I felt like the mocks I could build were just nowhere near good enough, and I was just too embarrassed. I didn't want to put the fruits of my labor out there if they were just rotten fruit. You know what I mean? Just because people out there build such incredible mocks. Ironically enough, the first video I ever put out was a little mock, and you guys have probably seen it. It's pretty terrible. So I didn't really want to put stuff like that out there. I felt like I had a better chance of like achieving greatness through like reviews, because I felt like I had a pretty good setup for doing reviews. I was pretty well spoken. I was able to kind of describe things in a fairly decent way. So I felt like that was the best thing I could do. And so I went about doing this for about a month, I think, and just mock building just kept nagging at me, because ultimately this is what I loved as a kid, right? I would build giant castles, I would build bases, Star Wars ships. That's what inspired me, and that's what like brings so much joy to me, is not so much collecting Lego sets, but building with them, building my own creations and creating my own stories out of them. This is kind of my medium of creation. And so it kept nagging at me in the back of my mind. And I was like, one day I was finally like, all right, I'll just throw together a little mock. We'll put it out on YouTube, right? And I don't even remember what it was called. It had like a clone artillery cannon. It was like in the ruins of like a city. Not my best mock, not my worst one. I was pretty happy with it, and I was surprised with how well it was received. You guys really supported it. Just had lots of good things to say about it. It made me feel really good about my creation. And so from there, I decided to go with maybe one mock a month. So I do reviews, and then each month I would put out one mock. It was about the size of a gray base plate, and this kept going and going, but it kept escalating. And this is what I didn't intend to happen. Each mock would get more complicated as my stories grew, as they intensified, as I had more ideas and more things that I wanted to create. They started to get a little bit bigger, and I started to use more and more pieces, because in the beginning, these were tiny mocks, guys. These were things that I was building with a very small collection, because when I first started my channel, I actually didn't know how to use Bricklink. So I mostly just had the pieces from my own collection, my siblings, and then there's a used Lego store by my house where I would go and get some pieces, but I couldn't order in like the quantities I would need to create a large scale mock. And so things kept escalating slowly and slowly. And so I didn't just start out, creating these giant, massive mocks with all these complex sections and moving parts and stuff. It started out really simple and really small. And it was just a slow process of just getting hungrier and hungrier and trying to feed that appetite for creation. And then, I think August of last year rolls around, or not, sorry, not last year, 2 years ago, 2019. 2020 was just a blur. I forget it was an entire year. So we're talking August 2019. I was really unhappy with where I was at in my kind of YouTube career. My channel had really stagnated. I was kind of considering quitting, just being done. And I decided like one last ditch effort was to create a giant mock. I was like, I want to do what David Hall's doing, Life Brick Studios, the Brick Wiz, Rich Boy J, just create a big mock. And I was like, maybe this will help me build the audience that I want to build. And so I started to plan what we now know as the Battle of Naboo. And I planned for a few months, and it was really scary because at the time I was going to school, I was working, I'm married. There was just so much going on in my life. I was very busy. So I was like, do I have the time and energy to be able to put together a large scale mock like that? Because those are expensive, and I didn't exactly have the financial stability that I currently have. And so I was like, oh, this could get expensive. I don't really know how much big mocks cost. I decided to just take a risk. I was like, at the end of the day, I can either try it out and it could fail, it could succeed, or I could live the rest of my life wondering, what if I had decided to do that big mock? So I started building it in December, and it was like I found my true calling with YouTube. You know what I mean? Like I just enjoyed the weekly building segment, just putting out new content every week of just this mock slowly coming together, showing you guys my struggles, my triumphs, my hauls. It just felt like I was able to give you guys an inside view of what I was building. And this just took so much pressure and stress off of me and my channel, because before that, I was constantly buying new sets, constantly trying to find stuff to review, constantly doing videos that I wasn't really passionate about. I'm not a big speed build guy. I'm not a big comparison guy. I'm not even a big review guy. I do those things on occasion, but to me, what truly gets me excited is mock building. And ultimately, if you're going to succeed and have a fulfilling YouTube career and be happy with the videos you're putting out, you have to do what you're passionate about. And so this was just a great blessing and opportunity for me to experience that. And then, as you guys know, from Naboo, it just continued to escalate. We went Naboo, Umbara, Ryloth, and now currently Utapau, which is just the biggest and most ambitious project I have undertaken so far. And it's been really fun to just go on that journey. That wraps up pretty much what I have for that question. But that question, how did I get into mock building, kind of leads me, or is a great segue into my next question, which is, how do you afford the mocks you do? I get asked this all the time. People are like, how on earth are you building such big mocks, spending so much money on these mocks? Because from an outside perspective, it's very easy to think like, oh, he's dropping like, 6-7 grand on these mocks. And to kind of go back to my previous question, it started out small, guys. I built and built and built, slowly worked up this collection. So this collection I have is years and years of collecting, right? These mocks could not be possible without all of those parts. And it's all about just prioritizing what you spend your money on, because we all, most of us do have money. We may not feel like we have a lot of money just because it's spread out all over the place. But if you can budget, if you can consolidate your funds and really be careful with how you're spending your money, you can actually free up a decent amount of money for what you really want. And so it kind of started out just slowly building up those pieces, as well as planning out my mocks, planning out future mocks while working on current mocks. Take, for example, Umbara, right? Naboo. By the time I was halfway done with these mocks, I was already planning the next mock and ordering pieces that I could use in the mock I was working on, but use for the future mock as well. So take, for example, Ryloth. 95% of the pieces that I used for Ryloth are now in Utapau. So that's almost 2 mocks with one bricklink haul. You know what I mean? I used those pieces multiple times. So I'm able to put out months and months of content without, spending tons and tons of money. Obviously, they are getting pretty expensive, especially Utapau, but a lot of those pieces come from previously built mocks. And so that would be kind of my advice for people who want to start getting into mock building, is really plan out future mocks while you're working on your current project and think, what can I order now that I can reuse later in a future mock? Because Utapau is expensive. Ryloth was not as expensive, but I can technically combine the two prices for those mocks because I'm using the same pieces for the mocks. So that's how I kind of afford these larger scale mocks. I also am a very big believer in budgeting. I don't spend a lot of money, guys. It may seem like I do, but most of the money I'm spending is going towards this channel and going towards future goals and mocks. I don't go out to eat a whole lot. I don't go out to movies. I don't spend a lot of money on clothes. I'm very frugal in other areas, which allows me to spend more money on Lego. I'll go into this more in future episodes. I would like to talk about my budget more and how to set up a budget for Lego and how to set up a budget for life, which will allow you to, buy more things that you really want. But we'll talk about that later in a future episode. So that wraps up this Q&A segment. I'll come up with a name for the Q&A segment probably by next episode. So the next episode, the theme for the questions are going to be mock building, mocks. So all things mock related, whether it can have anything to do with mocks. I don't care what it is, if it's about me, if it's about the mock, if it's about money for mocks, just anything to do with mocks. I really want to talk about mocks, and I feel like it's a fun topic, and it's one that I have a decent amount of expertise on. So if you have any questions about those, please leave them down below in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys have to ask about that. My final segment for this podcast is going to be YouTubing on a budget. I'm really excited about this one because, I had to start my channel from pretty small means and pretty cheap, inexpensive products. And I'm excited now to kind of share those products with you guys to help some of you who are kind of where I was a little while ago starting out, don't have a ton of money, don't have a lot of money to spend on different kinds of products, but who still want to up their YouTube game, because upgrading your production quality is a great way to grow your audience and a great way to, increase your viewer retention, increase the amount of subscribers, increase the amount of people coming back. And if you guys have any kind of tech or gear you want me to review, like let's say you're looking for a cheap tripod or a cheap microphone, cheap lighting, you want to know like what my opinion would be, just let me know down below in the comments. Be like, hey, Coconut, like, can you do like cheap tripods, cheap cameras, inexpensive? Like, I'm not going to do like cheap, crappy stuff, guys. This is stuff that works, stuff that I try, you know what I mean? So if you have any of that, let me know down below in the comments and I will try to get to it. But today's piece of tech, or whatever you want to call it, for YouTubing on a budget is an app called Filmic Pro. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with this app, but this was like the first time in my YouTube career where my production quality really stepped up a bunch. And this app is, I think, $15 in the App Store, which at first sounds a bit pricey, but the but what you get from it makes it very worth the $15. Filmic Pro is basically an app that turns your camera phone into a DSLR camera of sorts. So you get to control the brightness, you get to control the focus, the sound, the aspect ratio, how you're filming. There are just so many good advanced settings that this will help you begin to learn the ropes of using a DSLR camera. Obviously, it's not as good, but it's a great way to step up. Maybe you're not ready for a DSLR camera. Maybe you don't have, $1,000, but you're tired of filming on your phone. You can take this app and you can begin to learn how to change the color temperature, how to change the focus, how to work with audio a little bit more. Even though I have my Canon EOS M50 now, I still use Filmic Pro just because it's that good. It does have its flaws and its weaknesses, that's for sure. It is kind of a frustrating program to work with sometimes, but all in all, it has been very worth the $15 I spent on it. That's all I have for you guys for YouTubing on a budget. Tune in next month for a different piece of gear or technology that I will be reviewing. And that wraps up this episode of A Man and His Bricks. Episode 1 is in the books. This is going to be a lot of fun, guys. I'm excited. This is a very low-key podcast. I'm not going to be doing anything crazy on here. I'm just going to be sitting down, just leveling with you guys, just telling stories about my life, just giving you guys tips, tricks with mocs, cheap YouTube gear to help up your video game. Basically just trying to take you guys on an inside tour, an inside look of life of an AFOL in Coconut Brick Studios. What does Coconut Brick Studios look like behind the scenes? This podcast is going to change and evolve over the episodes, obviously, as I get better, as I speak better, as I find better, setups, all of that, maybe better segments. If you have a segment that you think would work really well on my podcast, please feel free to let me know down below in the comments. I love feedback from you guys. Good videos come from good feedback. So if you guys have anything at all, let me know down there. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to view my content, to listen to my podcast, and to generally support my channel. It has meant a lot to me and has been very inspiring and has helped pull me out of some very deep places. So a heartfelt thanks to you guys, and I will see you next month with episode 2. But until next time, happy building.